Who owns the land between the Jordan River and the Mediterranean Sea? Israelis point to Jerusalem, ancient Jewish kingdoms, exile, persecution, and return. Palestinians point to family homes, cultivated fields, centuries of continuous life, mass displacement, and military occupation. Both stories contain hard facts, but neither history nor suffering is a magic deed to every square mile. So this video will not hide behind the phrase, "it is complicated." We will separate four things people constantly mix together: historical connection, private property, political self-determination, and legal sovereignty. Then we will give a verdict, territory by territory. First, the current war. On October 7th, 2023, Hamas and other armed groups attacked southern Israel, murdered civilians, fought soldiers, and took roughly 250 hostages. Deliberately killing civilians and taking hostages were crimes, not resistance legalized by occupation. Israel's campaign then killed tens of thousands of Palestinians, displaced most Gazans, and devastated basic infrastructure. A ceasefire began in October 2025, and the final hostages remains returned in January 2026. Yet United Nations reporting in August 2026 still described military operations, restricted areas, displacement, and a critical humanitarian situation. A ceasefire has reduced the war. It has not settled the land. Now go back 3,000 years. The Jewish people did not appear in Europe and randomly select Palestine. Jewish identity, religion, language, and ancient statehood emerged here. The kingdoms of Israel and Judah, the temples in Jerusalem, Roman conquest, destruction, and repression after revolts, and the growth of an existing diaspora are history. Jewish communities also remained through later centuries. Denying the Jewish historical connection is simply false. But ancient connection is not unlimited modern sovereignty. Otherwise, half the world's borders would collapse under maps from antiquity. After the Arab conquests of the 7th century, Arabic language and culture gradually became dominant among a population shaped by conversion, migration, and long local continuity. Palestinians did not need a passport office in the year 1200 to become a people. Like many nations, their identity took modern political form in the 19th and 20th centuries. From 1517 until World War I, the Ottoman Empire ruled the land. There was no sovereign Palestine, but no sovereign Israel either. Palestine was never a country proves only that an empire ruled it, not that its inhabitants lacked rights or that the territory was ownerless. Modern Zionism grew as Jews faced exclusion, pogroms, and eventually the Holocaust. Immigrants built towns, revived Hebrew, created institutions, and legally purchased land. That disproves the cartoon that every Jewish home was stolen. But buying farms did not purchase sovereignty over the country, just as a foreign company buying acres in Texas does not acquire Texas. Britain captured the land during World War I. The 1917 Balfour Declaration supported a Jewish national home, while saying the civil and religious rights of existing non-Jewish communities must not be prejudiced. The League of Nations mandate recognized the Jewish historical connection, encouraged immigration, required self-governing institutions, and safeguarded the civil and religious rights of all inhabitants. The contradiction was built in. Britain promised one people's national project in a country where another people was the majority. Violence grew between both communities and against Britain. Arabs resisted mass immigration and demanded majority rule. Zionists argued that refugees needed a safe national home as the world closed its doors. The Holocaust murdered 6 million Jews and made a secure Jewish state morally urgent. It did not cancel the rights of Palestinian Arabs who did not commit it. In 1947, the United Nations recommended a Jewish state, an Arab state, and an international Jerusalem. About 650,000 Jews and 1.2 million Arabs lived in mandatory Palestine. The proposed Jewish state was allocated more than half the land on the UN map, much of it the sparse Negev. The Jewish Agency accepted despite reservations. The Arab Higher Committee and Arab states rejected the plan, arguing that an immigrant minority was allocated too much of a mostly Arab country. That rejection was a disastrous mistake, even if the plan was imperfect. Civil war began. Israel declared independence in May 1948 and neighboring Arab armies entered. Israel survived and expanded beyond the partition lines. Roughly 700,000 Palestinians fled or were expelled, some escaping battles, some directly driven out, many terrified by atrocities such as Deir Yassin. Historians dispute proportions and intent. Not the refugee catastrophe Palestinians call the Nakba. Jewish communities were also uprooted, and later hundreds of thousands of Jews fled or were pushed from Arab and Muslim countries. That matters morally, but one refugee's stolen home is not payment for another's. The 1949 armistice left Israel with about 78% of the former mandate. Jordan held the West Bank and East Jerusalem. Egypt held Gaza. The Green Line was not a final border, and no Palestinian state emerged. Arab rejection helped produce that outcome, but losing did not erase Palestinian self-determination. Israel became a recognized state. Its people are not guests who can be sent back elsewhere. In 1967, Israel captured the West Bank, East Jerusalem, and Gaza. Israel's strongest case begins here. Jordan's annexation of the West Bank was barely recognized, and no Palestinian state had ruled it. Israel therefore calls the land disputed. It also cites the mandate, Jewish history in Judea and Samaria, Resolution 242's failure to demand withdrawal from all territories, and the need for defensible borders after wars, bombings, rockets, and October 7th. Those are real arguments, especially as security. The Oslo Accords left borders, Jerusalem, settlements, refugees, and security for negotiation. Palestinians gained limited self-government while Israel retained extensive control. Oslo did not create a complete Palestinian state, but sovereignty still fails. Occupation law does not require a perfectly recognized previous state. Military victory, even in a defensive war, does not transfer title. Security Council Resolution 242 stresses the inadmissibility of acquiring territory by war. The Fourth Geneva Convention bars an occupier from transferring its civilians into occupied territory. Resolution 2334 says settlements, including in East Jerusalem, have no legal validity and border changes require agreement. In 2005, Israel removed its Gaza settlements and permanent ground prisons. Hamas won the 2006 Palestinian legislative election and, after armed fighting with Fatah, seized sole control of Gaza in 2007. It fired rockets, built tunnels, and governed repressively. Israel says occupation ended, yet Israel retained decisive control over airspace, sea access, most crossings, population records, and essential flows, while Egypt controlled its crossing. International bodies still treat Gaza, the West Bank, and East Jerusalem as one occupied Palestinian unit. Israel's renewed ground presence after 2023 weakened its case further. The strongest Palestinian case is not "we were here first." It is that Palestinians were the majority when imperial rule ended, possess equal self-determination, and land seized in 1967 cannot be annexed. In 2024, the International Court of Justice concluded that Israel's continued presence in the occupied territory is unlawful and must end rapidly. The opinion was advisory, and several judges warned that withdrawal and security cannot be separated. Still, it is the most authoritative legal assessment available. Palestinian leaders carry heavy responsibility. Rejecting partition, attacks on civilians, corruption, failed governance, and Hamas's eliminationism damaged Palestinian lives and diplomacy. None transfers territory to Israel. Crimes do not cancel a people's title, just as Israeli violations do not cancel Israel. So here is the verdict. The whole land does not belong exclusively to either people. Israel is legitimate. Its side of the green line is the accepted international baseline for Israeli sovereignty, although that line began as an armistice line and exact borders remain subject to agreement and individual property claims. Demanding Israel's disappearance is not decolonization. It would dispossess another existing nation. But if the disputed land means territory captured in 1967, the superior claim is Palestinian. The West Bank, including East Jerusalem and Gaza, are Palestinian territory under international law. Settlements create human realities and hard choices, not Israeli sovereignty. Borders may change only by free agreement. Reciprocal land swaps are one possible mechanism. They cannot change merely because one side held land longer or built more houses. Jerusalem needs the same honesty. West Jerusalem should remain Israeli and serve as Israel's capital. East Jerusalem is occupied Palestinian territory, not recognized sovereign Israeli territory. In this two-state verdict, it should become Palestine's capital, with binding guarantees for all holy sites. Security arrangements can be shared, international, strict, and long-term. Security is a right. Permanent acquisition is not security. That conclusion does not excuse Hamas, deny Jewish history, or pretend Israel can withdraw without credible protection. It says something simpler. Jewish self-determination in Israel and Palestinian self-determination in Palestine are not competing mathematical claims where one must equal zero.